Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. Citi Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. We're the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Any day. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will sign. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. Citi Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts, starting a little bit later today. I will tell you why coming up in just a few moments, but it is John Saponaro coming to you from sunny, warm Burbank, California, and that means that my co-host, Matt Ibanez, is holding things down back in New Jersey, and I don't know the weather exactly where you live, Ibby, but if it's anything like what Citi Field has gone through in Queens, in New York over the last 3 days or so, it ain't so sunny, it ain't so warm, it doesn't feel like baseball weather back east.
No, John, I appreciate it, but in general, I am doing well outside of this very bipolar weather where it is 70 degrees one day, it's 80 degrees, it's 30 degrees, it's 35 degrees, it's windy, it's not windy, all this nonsense. It's making it very hard to get dressed in the morning, that's for sure. But other than that, I'm doing well. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to our New York Mets, and I'm pumped up to get into every bit of it because for as much good has been going on with our team over the last week or so, there are still some equally troubling questions that need to be spoken on, which we're going to do. As always, we like to keep things 100 on here and make sure that we're covering everything and not just always talking about the good, but we have to cover everything when it comes to this team. So I'm pumped up to get into all of it. The room's going to start filling up. It's Wednesday, red lights on. Let's do this.
We are ready to rock. And as always, this show free and available, not only wherever you get your live streams, like right here on YouTube, but also where you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of those places and more. But the best way to become a full-fledged participant in this show is right now when we are live, where your questions, your comments, your concerns, all of that stuff can be seen not only by us, but by everybody who's here in the live chat. The only way to become a live member or live participant in that chat is to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. So make sure that you do that. Turn notifications on so that you never, ever, ever miss a moment. Shout out to everybody who's already here. We have Charlie, we have Brad, we have Armand, a lot of familiar faces when we start the show as always. D is in the house. Jeff Cohen is here. Keith Blacknick, the media goon. We have, who else? Zero Cool is here. I already have a comment starred from Zero Cool. Ken Thal, Rosie K, Carson is in the house, and that's it as far as commenters to this point. About 50 folks, way less than that as far as comments go. But like you said, I think that will continue to go up as the show rolls along. Charlie said, might be a few minutes late, but since we rarely start at 5:30, should be fine. Shout out to John and Ibby. Remember to hit the like button each week. Thank you for saying hit the like button. But I'm pulling that up because we didn't start on time. Because I don't know if you guys can hear this right now. There's a little bit of humming going on. There's a little bit of buzzing going on. It is not my mic. It is not your speakers on your phone or your computer. It's not even Ibby's Wi-Fi. It is some dipshit that lives in the building that I live in that is deciding to use a circular saw in the parking space that is directly under my podcast studio and office. So I'm going to try my best to not let that get onto, especially the audio mix. I think if I'm talking, the mic will probably just pick most of that up. I can feel it underneath me, which is really obnoxious, but it is what it is. The reason why we started late was because I was like, hey, Abby, let's give this like 10 minutes and see if this person is done. They're not done. They're still working. So that's all I got to say about that.
Of course, we got Keith coming in here with a fantastic comment saying, are we sure it's not Ibby's Wi-Fi? Well, you know what, Keith, maybe it is my Wi-Fi. Just flew out to California, wanted to work on some home improvement stuff out in John's parking lot. But no, it is not the Wi-Fi for a change. Knock on wood. Hopefully we can make our way through this show. But of course, no promises. But I'll try my best.
Listen, I will say this. At least here in California, it is warm enough to do a little bit of work outside. Although right now,
this guy, man,
I wish that it wasn't, because this guy's really getting on my friggin' nerves. Keith saying, I don't hear anything besides you chatting, John. I appreciate that. I think, yes, I have a good microphone and it's pretty directional, but it does pick up a lot of stuff if there's downtime. So while Ibby's talking, I'll try to make sure that I am muted so that it doesn't mess with the audio version of the show. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, let's jump into the conversation with our New York Mets. Ibby, hard not to be reactionary off of a game that just happened during the season when we record, an hour or two after it's over. So let's just react to that game very quickly, get it out of the way. It's a very standard getaway day game for a team that was, 5-0 on the homestand, looking to go 6-0. Mets looked a little lethargic. The pitching wasn't exactly there. It was really cold despite the mid-afternoon start. It wasn't a great game. They played bad defensively. They didn't exactly pitch well. Diaz didn't pitch well. The offense obviously non-existent. But I can't get too up in arms about a game like this when the Mets are 8-4, when the Mets are playing in April in the Northeast where it's really cold, where the Mets have already won 5 out of 6 games on the homestand. I'm not trying to give them a pass. You never like to see ugly baseball games. This is just one that, and I know you didn't watch it because you were at work, but this is just one where I kind of look at it and I never really felt like the Mets were going to win after like the second or third inning. I was like, there's no score in this game. If the Mets don't score early and kind of put the boot down on the Marlins are going to stick around. They're going to score. And I bet you the Mets, don't. And that's kind of how it played out. I didn't say that to anybody, but that's what I was thinking. I watched every inning of the game and it was just a boring watch. So you didn't miss anything. I'll say that.
Yeah. It seems like from the stuff that I was picking up from our chat and from just, looking on Twitter when I was able to, that it was just a very, very, I should say, I want to say uncharacteristic, but coming off of the scoring output that they had the previous day to then come in this way and not have a hit until like the 5th or 6th inning, whatever it may have been. Look, I know that everyone automatically assumes that the Marlins are garbage. And look, to be honest, they are, but they do have some good pitchers, and Max Meyer is a good pitcher, highly touted prospect, comes in, does his job for 5 innings. Look, I'm not trying to sugarcoat how this team overall played, but it's, I'm also trying to give flowers to Meyer because he is a solid pitcher who has a very, very promising future in this league. But either way, not something you wanted to see the homestand end on, but at the same time, a lot of good happened over the past week while this team did play at home. But yeah, it's a sour note to end on, but they get a little bit of rest before they head out to Sacramento to play the A's.
Yes, the A's that play in Sacramento, technically West Sacramento, but we're not allowed to call them the Sacramento A's. We definitely can't call them the Oakland A's. I guess we technically also can't even call them the Vegas A's because they're not there yet. Who knows if they're ever going to go. We can't call them the Philadelphia A's, even though they spent some of their history there. We can't call them the Kansas City A's, even though they spent some of their history there. They're just the A's. They're just the Athletics, which is the strangest thing. You've seen Gary Cohen slip up on the broadcast. I'm sure Ronnie is going to mess up on the broadcast when he gets back in the booth with Gary for that series. We saw Steve Gelbs slip up on the broadcast. People are going to slip up. We're going to slip up on this show. Sometimes I still call the Raiders the Oakland Raiders. The fact that the A's don't even have a city yet to replace them is going to be a tough task. But, Ibby, look, I think there is plenty of good stuff to take away from what we saw, obviously. The offense still very boom or bust, but what the pitching is doing is very real right now. The Mets are getting very good pitching today, notwithstanding, although I think Tyler McGill deserved credit for gutting it out the way that he did. And he takes a bit of a hard luck loss because really none of those runs are his responsibility, but it is what it is. But the pitching has been excellent for a team that everybody would have told you the Mets don't have any pitching. Heading into today, they had the best bullpen ERA in the sport. I believe they still had the best entire pitching staff ERA in the sport. It probably changed a little bit, after today, giving up the 5 runs, whatever. I don't know if they're now 1 or 2 in one of those categories, but that is nothing to sneeze at. I don't care if you're only 12 games into a season, especially when everybody looks at that as the weak point of your team, and you come out and you make a statement through, 2 weeks of baseball or whatever. I think that that's something that the Mets can definitely lean on the way that they are leaning on their very excellent bullpen to this point.
Absolutely. And I think that it's obviously we love what we're seeing from the pitching because we talked about the pitching lab all spring training and how we wanted to make sure that the things that we saw under the hood during that time were going to translate to when games matter. And it has to this point. Again, I'm going to reiterate the things that I was worried about. And that was, as long as we're getting enough from the starting pitching, so this bullpen, as nails as it's been, doesn't get overworked and tired by the time we roll into those May, June, July months, because like I said, it can be an actual weapon. So I do want to see a little bit more length coming from the starters. Look, it's fantastic when I am seeing the likes of Griffin Canning doing well and Clay Holmes doing well. If we can cut down on some of those walks, manage ourselves a little bit better when it comes to the pitches thrown. And so we're not, overusing this bullpen. That's still something that is creeping into the back of my mind. I hope it's not something that comes to the forefront. I hope that we get a little bit more out of the stars in terms of length, but in terms of what they're giving us to this point, it's been awesome. Now, I wish everything was chugging at the same time. It's fantastic that we do have the record that we do when we've been so Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to the offense. Specifically, the bottom half of the offense is really, the bottom half of the lineup is really, really killing us when we're talking about, whatever it is, at 7 through 9 in the lineup where we're batting, what is it, $180, whatever it is, like 18 hits out of 50 something plate appearances. It's more now since there was a game today, but it's not pretty. A lot of things need to change at the bottom half because obviously you want to be able to turn over that lineup and create opportunities for the top so they can drive them in. And when when you have guys like Lindor, Soto, Pete being red hot, you want to make sure the bottom half is doing its job so they can do their job at the front end, drive them in, and they can keep on this, keep the quarter in the merry-go-round. But it's a struggle right now for this offense, and it's very frustrating because, like I said, one day it looks like everything is finally clicking. The next day, they disappear completely. We understand that sometimes this team can be streaky, but, this early going could be a little bit frustrating, especially when you add a Juan Soto to the mix. You thought things would change a little bit, but they're still working through it. And like you mentioned before, I do feel that weather has a problem, is an issue with that. I think once things start to turn a little bit more, I think that the offense is going to find a groove once it gets a little bit warmer, and we're going to see the ball start flying out of the park a little bit more, and they're going to find that, that spot where we all believe this offense can actually get.
Yeah, and look, certain guys deserve credit. Pete Alonso at the forefront of that list. Everybody knows how much of a Pete Alonso fan I am if you listen to this show. Defended him ardently, despite the fact that I understood why the Mets were doing what they were doing, playing hardball with him in the offseason, especially towards the tail end when they were trying to find out a deal that worked for them. Look, Ibby, now that Vlad Guerrero Jr. is off the table, if you want to tell me that the Mets are going to start talking extension with Pete, I wouldn't even think that that's crazy because the Mets are going to need a guy to play first base. And if this is going to be the Pete Alonso that we are going to see, and it looks like he has course corrected a lot of what was plaguing him, not just last year, but really the last 2 years. Last year was just a glaring example of kind of everything that could go wrong for Pete going wrong in terms of chase rate, in terms of being too quick, in terms of, not having I think Pete was up at the top of the league last year in maximum exit velocity, but he was like way down in the middle of the pack in terms of average exit velocity, which meant when he hit the ball hard, he was hitting it a ton, but he wasn't hitting the ball as hard as we're used to seeing him do on a consistent basis. And I think part of that was not being as selective. Chasing pitches certainly, has been something that plagued him over the last, again, 2 years, but last season specifically. And if Pete is going to find this groove, this way that he has settled in, and shout out to Carson, who I know is here in the comments over from Mets Weekly, he basically said this is what Pete did previously in his career. I think you go back to 2022. This is the kind of start that he had in terms of, RBI and some of the power numbers and some of the, the OPS numbers. And, the last 2 years it has taken a hit, but now it looks like he has found that groove again. So he deserves all the credit in the world, especially for people who said, hey, maybe this guy with a walk year felt the pressure. Well, he's essentially in another walk year right now. And while other guys on this team deserve credit on the offensive side, we'll get to them in a second. Alonso has been the guy who from day one has been locked in, and he has carried this team. Again, other contributors have been there. Lindor has gotten hot over the last 5, 6, 7 games. Soto has been on base despite not being Soto-like. He's gotten on base and he's gotten his hits in every game except today. He has done plenty. And Nimmo, even though he left an army on base, 2 days ago, he rebounds and, gets a big double yesterday. I'm not sure if he's a cleanup hitter, but we could talk about that later. There are contributors throughout the lineup. Jesse Winker had a big game, Starling Marte even with a home run. But then you look at the other side of it with Vientos, who's not been good, Beatty, who looks like somebody who should be playing for the Long Island Ducks. Acuna doesn't look much better. The catchers have given you more than you could ever dream of in a world where Alvarez is hurt. And center field has not given you much, but I think center field has given you adequate offense for the defense that they play. That one misplay by Tyrone Taylor in the outfield notwithstanding, and they've kind of gotten, they sprinkled in their ways to be contributors from an offensive standpoint. I'm not going to worry about center field the way I'm going to worry about second base right now, but we'll talk about that coming up in a second. Alonso has done everything you could possibly want and more.
Pete Alonso right now, I'm loving every single thing that I'm seeing, because this guy did not exist last year. What I'm seeing this year is the Pete Alonso that John has spoken about so highly of on this show since its inception. Like, this is the guy that all Mets fans have been watching since 2019. Last year, that guy went away. He wasn't really here for the majority of the season. And he claims it wasn't about the contract. I still think it had something to do with it a little bit. But this brings it back to what I said all off season when I said the importance of a Juan Soto was going to allow a Pete Alonso to be Pete Alonso. And we are seeing that happen, glowing. Like, everything about him right now, he is locked in since day one. He's getting the pitches to hit. The questionable nature of yesterday's game, where we're walking Juan Soto to face a red hot Pete Alonso who clears the bases with a bases clearing double. Questionable defense by the Marlins all around, but everything that Pete has done has been with extreme focus, and it's great to see. And, this just goes back to, what John saying before, like, people want to complain about Soto not being Soto-esque, if you will, even though he has gotten on base as much as he has, which is also creating opportunities for the likes of Lindor and Alonso to put up the numbers that they are putting up, because with him on base, it changes the dynamic for pitchers. It changes the dynamic and the at-bats for these players. Both of them are thriving. But all in all, when I look at Pete, and I don't have today's numbers in front of me, but I know that he has, whatever. I just had him. I lost him. But because I got ridiculous Beatty stats up right now.
I have Pete Alonso.
Here we go.
In front of me. Yep.
Okay. The latest one that I had was obviously 3 homers, 15 RBIs, a 692 slug, which probably went up today if he had a couple of hits. His OPS as well is close to 1200. Like, he's batting over 330. Like, everything about that stat line. What do you got, Gavin?
Yeah, his OPS, I love early season stats because they're insane. His OPS plus, which measures hitters on an average number of 100. So if you hit 100, you're at league average. If you're 101, you're 1% better than league average. His OPS plus is 222.
That's
which
pretty
makes
solid.
Him 122% better than league average.
So once
That's
again,
an insane number.
So once again, you walk someone,
but it's like a joke.
Right. So obviously you would clearly walk somebody to face that player because he's red hot and the ball is a beach ball to him right now. But it's awesome to see what Pete is doing. And, stuff like John mentioned before, the dynamics change with Vlad signing the extension that he did. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I think right now you focus on baseball. I know Pete said that recently. I'm focusing on baseball. I'm open to talks, but right now my focus is the New York Mets and doing what I have to do to help this team win ball games, which is what you want to hear. He's doing his job. Hopefully, as the weather turns and as the days progress, the rest of the offense can find a groove and we can start, really putting more consistent beatings and putting more consistent runs on the board.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, by the way, if you're watching the show live today, or if you're watching it on repeat later on, and you're like, wait a minute, this looks different. You guys changed the orientation. For forever used to be side by side, and now you have an up and down split screen, and we see more of your surroundings and stuff. That is by design as we put more content out on YouTube Shorts, TikTok and Instagram Reels, not just the stuff that I'm doing with the Til Mets Morning Minute, which I'm shooting vertically, but cutting up stuff from this long show, putting it into short form formats as well. We've noticed that it's just easier and it makes more sense if we go ahead and we shoot ourselves vertically so that when we cut the clips, it looks a little bit better. So nobody mentioned it in the comments, but I kind of realized it as I'm looking at Ibby and I keep looking at my computer in a different spot. That is why we switch things up. So after that little sidebar, I want to jump into the comments really quick.
Yeah.
Ken Thal says, and his defense is stellar in all caps, talking about Alonso. Zero Cool says, stellar, it's been decent. I think they're both right. I think stellar is probably a little unfair to people who are legitimately Gold Glove first baseman in every way, shape, or form. However, I have long been a defender of Pete Alonso's defense. So I'm with Ken in the sense that Pete Alonso's defense has been as good as it can be for somebody like Pete who has limited range. He has always been really good around the bag. His footwork is good. Digging out balls in the dirt is good. He's obviously a big target, so he's got, a little bit of reach there. And Pete will get to most things that he can get to within, a couple of feet of him if he has to dive. So, I'm not trying to talk down on his defense, but I think his defense has been as good as advertised because the things that he does well, he's doing well. He's never going to confuse anybody and be like, wow, is that prime Keith Hernandez out there? Like, no. Also, though, I will give him credit with this. Ibby, his throws have been really good, which has been something that has bugged Pete in the past as far as defense has been concerned. Seems like that might be something where we can give him a bit more credit in terms of something he wasn't necessarily good at in the past that so far in a small sample size this year has been very good. And I don't want to spend too much time on Alonso's defense. He's here to drive in runs. He's here to hit home runs. He's doing that, but he is playing very fluidly on both sides of the ball right now. And that leads me to this last comment from Ken Thal before I throw it back to you. It was 100% about the contract, which you mentioned before. I think that is, I think there's some possibilities there that it was maybe not 100%, but I would say probably 90% about the contract last year.
Yeah, I think that look, he could claim that it wasn't, but you definitely see a different person. And I do believe that when you have a Juan Soto in front of you, it does change the dynamic a bit. But in general, it just seems as though this is a person that has that same focus that we're used to, accustomed to seeing from previous years when Pete would go on to drive in the amount of RBIs that he would, 120 plus RBIs in a given season. A guy who's locked into the point that can hit 45 home runs. Like, this is the guy that you want hitting in the middle of your lineup. And, people claimed that, Juan Soto didn't have protection in this lineup. Well, he has protection, and it is showing out big time right now. And hopefully it can continue for the duration of the season.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Juan Soto, because I think
let's.
There is a misconception. Really quick, I actually want to pull this one up. Carson said before, the Kansas City, Philadelphia, Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas Athletics really rolls off the tongue.
Beautiful.
And Charlie said, why can't we call them Sacramento? I guess technically we can call them that if we want to, because that is where they play geographically. But because the team, based on the owner and decisions that were made, they don't want to be known as Sacramento. So they have stripped the location, the geography from their identity for the time being. So it's kind of like how before they became the Commanders, they were just simply the Washington football team. Right. It's sort of that nomenclature where they are just simply the Athletics. That's it. They're not, it would be as if we're just talking about the Mets. No geography attached. I think it's a dumb thing. I think it's a misguided thing. I think it's a pointless thing, but I think John Fisher's a moron. So, and I don't think he cares about Sacramento.
No,
I don't think he cares about Oakland. That's evident. I don't even think he cares about Vegas. I just think he thinks Vegas is going to make the difference. And so he doesn't even want the new and shiny concept of Vegas that still might not even come to fruition. Or we have no idea when it will. He doesn't want that to be sullied by the name of Sacramento, which I think is awful. Honestly, I don't know if you want to get a comment in on that before we move on to Juan Soto, but it's complete nonsense.
No, I got nothing to add on that. I just think it sounds funny that they don't want to include the name. It almost comes across as, if they said, "Oh, if you say Sacramento, it's going to cost you a couple extra pennies." Like, no, thanks. We're just the A's. Don't say Sacramento. Just we're the A's. That's it. But no, I got nothing to say. Like, I don't want to. We're going to waste our breath on plenty of players or people during this show. I don't want to waste any more on the likes of Sean Fisher.
That's fine. Okay, we'll move on to Juan Soto then. There is a misconception, Ibby, that Juan Soto has not been good.
I don't know what games they're watching.
I'm not sure. Now, I will say this. Juan Soto, in some ways, I'm going to be very careful when I say this. In some ways, Juan Soto has not been vintage Juan Soto. The power and the run production. But in other ways, he's been exactly what Juan Soto has always been. Juan Soto, right now, small sample size, 12 games. He has a 308 batting average, 4 RBI, a stolen base, 1 home run. He's got 12 hits total in 39 at bats. But his slash line, Ibby, 308 batting average, 438 on base percentage, 487 slug with a 925 OPS and a 166 OPS plus, which again, if you're keeping track at home, that makes him 66% better than a league average hitter. And you wonder where that falls in line with his career numbers. Well, his batting average, 308, his career, 285. His on-base percentage, 438, his career, 421. His slugging, 487, his career, 532. His OPS, 925, his career, 953. His OPS plus, 166, his career, 160. Really, it's just the power numbers. It's the slugging and the OPS that you'd like to see be a little bit high because it's the extra base hits that are kind of missing right now. They're going to come. They're going to happen. I promise.
I want to pull up a comment real quick. Zero Cool stating the obvious that Soto will be there. He's the last guy to worry about. And it's the truth. Like, of all people, do not worry about Juan Soto. Like when I watch these games and I'm watching Juan Soto at bats, it's for me as a baseball geek who loves hitting and who loves the art of hitting, and I watch how this guy goes about every single at bat. It's like it's truly watching an artist up there if you truly appreciate hitting and his approach, how he watches the ball, everything about it. I get that the power's not there yet, but I think Keith mentioned on the broadcast yesterday, he said he seems to be just a little bit off, but he said that once that clicks, the power's going to come, and I believe that wholeheartedly. But everything else there, he's so quick on the inside. He pulls the ball the way that he does. Like, I am not worried about this player. Everything that he is doing is still helping this team win ball games. Do you want to see the home runs? Of course you do, because I guarantee you this comes down to people associating money and the amount of money given to said player that it's going to equate to home runs. And I understand that to an extent. But again, this is an all-world hitter, an all-class hitter. And the power is going to going to be here. Like, I'm not worried about it at all. So, why anyone would take or waste the time, I should say, like people on Twitter, dumb people on Twitter, to think that Juan Soto hasn't provided enough for this team yet. I just bring it back to what I said before. He's provided alone, not even based off of his numbers. He's provided so much for Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso to allow them to thrive the way that they are. Without that player here, those things, they are not happening. And I love both of those players. I speak so highly of Lindor.
Mm-hmm.
I speak highly and support Pete. Like, those numbers are not happening without Juan Soto. So
Maybe let's
yeah,
play a quick game. Not to interrupt you, just to further your thought. I'm going to give it right back to you.
Yeah.
The Mets don't sign Juan Soto, right? They try, they fall just short. He goes back to the Yankees.
Okay.
Sure, they make another offensive addition somewhere, right? They'll need to add a different player. But do they add a player that's good enough to hit between Lindor and Alonso? Probably not.
No.
So who's hitting in between Alonso and Lindor if Soto's not on the team? It's probably Mark Vientos.
Yes.
How's Mark Vientos doing so far?
Not pretty, man. Not pretty.
So
trying to find a groove, but not pretty.
Do you think, and we'll talk about Vientos in a second. I'm not here to throw him under the bus, but do you think Alonso has the numbers he has with Vientos hitting in front of him?
No.
Let's say it's not Vientos. Let's say they go in a different direction and it's Nimmo. Nimmo's been okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does Alonso have the numbers he has with Nimmo hitting in front of him?
No.
Okay. That's it. That's all.
No.
That's all you need to know.
No.
You know, unless the Mets go out and get somebody who, you know, you can't undo everything and put another player on this team or whatever that would slot in there. I can't think of one that would upset the Mets top of the lineup in a way that Soto did as a disruptor of like, oh, this guy hits second, this is what happens. Or, you know, this guy hits third, he's inserted in there automatically. Okay, fine. Carson's joking, but Alex Bregman, right? So they go out, they bring in Bregman. I don't even need to look at Bregman's numbers right now to know that it's not providing what Soto's providing. Period. Full stop.
I know Bregman's doing, you know, he's playing decently for Boston. I know he's got a lot of hits. He's up there when it comes to hits, but it's still the presence in general and how it would work within this lineup. I don't see Pete having the year that he's having to this point if it's anybody other than Juan Soto. So again, the power's going to be there. It's nothing to be focused in on April the 9th.
Oh, I think Ibby froze.
He's going to turn is there. Everything else is working. So again, don't worry about Juan Soto. There's plenty that you can potentially worry about with this team when it comes to the hitting side. But Juan Soto, that's not the guy. He's Juan Soto, guys. Come on.
And you know what? Just to be fair, the last thing I'll say on this, I do have Bregman's numbers pulled up, and he is off to a very good start. Same 308 batting average. He has 10 RBI. He has 1 stolen base, 2 home runs, 16 hits to, you know, Soto's 12 or whatever. He does have more at bats to this point than Soto. He's got a 345 on base, a 519 slug, an 865 OPS, and a 140 OPS plus. So, Ibby, some of the traditional stats are a bit higher. He has 1 more home run, and he has a few more RBI because he's been, I guess, a bit better in those situations. But the on-base percentage is way lower. The slugging is lower. The OPS is lower, and the OPS plus is lower. The batting average is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I look at this and I see from 0, Bregman is the MVP right now. And okay.
I mean, I'm not really focused on MVPs.
Like, it's too early for that. You know what I mean? Like, I know what you're trying to say, but like the numbers are comparable. He's not blowing Soto out of the water.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I just think that there's other factors for that as well, ballpark and things of that nature. But no, I all the respect in the world for Bregman, but I still don't believe that if he was here, he would be doing what he's doing in Boston and providing what Soto provides for the likes of for Lindor as well as Alonso. So it's a moot point really, because it's not something that's ever going to happen. So it's just like what ifs, but that's the way I view it, at least.
I didn't want to get, I guess it's my fault for bringing up the conversation. The point of the exercise was not the what if machine of if the Mets had Bregman or traded for Kyle Tucker, like Armand said in the comments. That was not the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise was if the Mets didn't get Juan Soto and did not bring in a significant piece, because who knows if you're trading for Tucker, who knows if their interest in Bregman was real, actually. If they didn't bring in an actual person to fit in between Lindor and Alonso, Lindor and Alonso would not be producing the way that they are. That's the point. Soto is the guy. And I think even as good as those other guys are, Tucker and Bregman, I don't know if their approach permeates a lineup the way that Soto's approach permeates a lineup. It just does. His ability is so large, like his presence looms so large that it makes a difference. You might not be able to see it, but it does. It really does.
It definitely does. And anyone, I mean, I'm willing to always fight for someone like Kyle Tucker, but again, like, and he's having a fantastic start this year as well. But yeah, I just think that the presence in general and the respect that a player like Juan Soto commands changes everything. So again, it's all whatever right now. It doesn't matter. He's here. Ultimately, again, to bring it back, don't worry about him. He's going to be fine.
I like this. Chris Scopo, former guest of the show, great comedian.
Hey,
Chris
what's up,
says,
Chris?
well, they did. So what does it matter? I agree. And then Zero Cool saying Soto is the best lefty hitter since Bonds. Next topic. I agree. I didn't want to muddy the waters, but I thought it was a good exercise and it did get a little out of hand. If you're watching live, you're watching Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern or thereabouts. Usually start about 5 or 10 minutes late. That's just how life goes. And subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, turn notifications on so you don't miss a moment. And make sure that you like this particular video if you like what you're hearing and you like what you're seeing. It'd be the third person in the triumvirate that the Mets have created that we got to talk about is Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor, if you look at his numbers, just again through a handful of games, basically played one less game than everybody else because of the birth of his son. They're not great, but they are steadily climbing from where they were when he started with I think he was 0 for 18 to start, something like that. Of course, he has now I think he's riding like a 7-game hit streak. He had those 5 games in a row, I think it was, where he led off the game with a hit, culminating and leading off the game 2 days ago with a home run. Look, again, the overall numbers, not great, but when you compare them to the way Lindor has started, not only as a Met, but in his career, he's always been a bit of a slow starter. To see the swings that he's getting and to see these numbers in early April not be in the absolute tank are terrific. 243 batting average, 7 runs scored, 5 RBI, 2 stolen bases, on base percentage 295, slugging, 378, OPS 674, OPS plus 93. Those are all going to go up. But when you look at what he has done in totality, the fact that we're getting we're getting closer to Lindor being Lindor, and we're not having to wait till the middle of May for it to happen, that is great. And I also think it's partially on Juan Soto too.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the guy's been on fire since the birth of his son as well. But yeah, everything that we just said about Soto helping Pete, same thing applies here. I was going to mention it before, and you just did. That is, we're so used to Lindor being in this funk for a much longer period of time, and he's starting to come out of it even that much sooner. A little bit of home cooking, getting back off the road. He's been thriving since he's been at Citi, and and the song and everyone's singing My Girl, like all this stuff. It has really shown out in his overall play, just an overall comfortable person up there, which he has become since the start until now, which we noticed last year, obviously. But everything about him, I'm not worried at all. Still playing fantastic defense, all withstanding that one game against the Marlins. But all in all, it's great to see. And just to bring it back in full circle for what we're talking about with these 3 players, Lindor, Soto, and Pete Alonso combined. Shout out to Michael Barron for this one. With a 296 average amongst the 3, 11 doubles, 5 homers, 24 RBIs, 19 walks to 17 strikeouts with 24 runs scored. The Mets have scored 45 runs total in 2025. Look, guys, we all know We all know in this chat, myself and John know, it ain't those three as to why this offense is struggling. It's a lot of the other pieces, which hopefully can get things figured out. But as long as those three are chugging along, we got a shot.
Yeah, we talked about the good. As far as the offense is concerned, it's really those three guys, and you got to give credit to the catching position. Luis Torrens, before getting that contusion on his forearm, giving us a lot more offensively than we could have asked for, especially right out of the gate. You know, again, I said last week, this is the kind of player Torrens is. He's going to play really great defense. He's got an incredible throwing arm. He'll get hot for times, and he'll hit you, you know, a lot of extra base hits, mostly doubles, some home runs mixed in. The best thing about it is he decided to start the season on one of those streaks while we were missing Francisco Alvarez. Shout out to Hayden Senger. He's been, I think, better offensively than any of us would have thought. He's not been great offensively.
No, nothing special. Yeah.
You have to understand, he's not an offensive prospect.
No.
Period.
No.
He is there for the way he the way he receives, and the way he throws. He's a good defender, and he's got a plus arm, and that's why he's on the major league roster. That and obviously the injury to Alvarez. But the reason why the Mets didn't go out of the organization was because they knew he could do the job defensively. So anything you get from him offensively is cake. And they've gotten more out of those two guys than I think anybody could reasonably ask for. That position aside, the top three in the lineup has kind of been it. So let's turn our attention to some of the bad. And we'll start with Vientos, because you have two schools of thought on Vientos. Rosie K, I'm worried about Vientos. Keith Blacknick, the media goon, says Lindor, Soto, Alonso will pick each other up all season at bat. It's the first time in eons that I feel like the Mets have a potent crew of hitters. I agree. But then says Nimmo, Vientos will come around too. Leave Nimmo out of it for a second. We already talked about Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. You have the school of thought that Vientos will come around. You have the school of thought of people that are already worried about Vientos. Where do you fall on that spectrum if those are the two extremes? Knowing that he will come around, being sure of it, let's say, and being worried that he is a flash in the pan. Those are the extremes. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I'm more so that I'm going to take what I watched last year when struggles came about and I watched a player figure things out and readjust. I had been saying, and I believe this, that once a league sees what you thrive on, they're going to do everything in their power to not allow you to thrive. You have to figure things out in order to force them to do things that feed into you a little bit more so you can find said success. So you're going to get a healthy diet of breaking pitches. They're not going to feed you those fastballs anymore. You got to work for them again. And I think that from the work ethic that I've seen from this player, I'm not going to be on the route, or I'm not going to, be on the side of this is a flash in the pan, but I'm not going to automatically say, oh yeah, like this guy's definitely going to figure it out. I'm kind of like almost in the middle where it's like, this is starting off as the proverbial sophomore slump. And I do trust that this player has the work ethic and the talent to figure it out. Now, is it going to be what we think that 90th percentile is on a consistent basis this year? Maybe it won't be. I'm not 100% sure just yet, but I err more on the he's going to figure things out. And as I said last week or 2 weeks ago now at this point, there's going to be those ups and downs when it comes to a power hitter. You just want him to do the damage when the ball is actually in the zone. And I feel like we've seen some at-bats to this point that show that he's starting to get there and he's going to find that groove and he's going to take more advantage of the balls that are in, within the strike zone so he can do said damage. But I'm not going to say that I'm 1,000% worried as if he can't figure this out, because I do believe he can figure it out. How long it's going to take him, that to me is still up for debate, because sometimes when it comes to these sophomore slumps, it takes a little bit longer than you would expect.
I agree. Ibby, Hebrew Hammer, shout out to Hebrew Hammer, saying no more super chats, can't give anything. What's going on with our super chats, man?
That's odd. I will double check as you are answering this right now.
Thank you, Hebrew. We are working on that. As far as we know, nothing has changed. We did have the wrong backdrop up. That was my bad. Ibby has switched it out to the Super Chats Now Available one. We did not have that up before. I simply uploaded the wrong one, but they should be working. Ibby checks on that. Look, I think it's funny, but I get it. I see it now in the comments as we're talking about this. It is, I'm not worried about Vientos. Vientos will come around. I wish I wasn't worried about Vientos. I'm worried about Vientos. I don't think Vientos is a flash in the pan. Like, it's just, I get the divide. I mean, Rosie, who is a little worried about Vientos, says, I don't think that he's a flash in the pan. Cindy saying, I wish I wasn't worried about him, but I kind of am. So I understand it, and I think it's fair. I think it's a fair worry to have, because here's a guy who before last year didn't really have any kind of sweeping success. You know, he came up and he was always pretty mediocre. And then last year, he doesn't make the team, although he probably should have made the team. They signed JD Martinez. That changed everything. He went down. He had a chip on his shoulder. He worked his ass off. He seems like a guy who always works his ass off. And he made himself not only into a guy that they could not take out of the lineup, but he played well enough at third base to the point where they could be like, you know what? If this guy continues his progression, I think he'll hit enough to be a guy who we can have at third base every day. I personally don't think he has hit his peak defensively. I think he can still get a little better. I think you see it in flashes. He'll have excellent games and bad games. I think he just needs to level that out a bit more. But I'm not worried about him yet. And a lot of it has to do with how he has adjusted, Ibby, not just last year, but just in the last couple of days. We've seen him get off to a really bad start where he looked really bad at the plate, swinging at everything, all over, had no clue up there. And we've already seen an adjustment from that. We've already seen this guy have better at bats, hit a ball on the screws. He gets robbed 2 days ago, hits a ball down the line, diving play. Marlins played, great defense at times in this series, especially in the outfield. And I think there are signs that Vientos is already coming out of it. Next thing he has to do is start translating some of that success. So I'm not worried, but I can't get mad at people who are worried. I just think if you skew it so much to like, oh my goodness, this guy's a flash in the pan, we're screwed, then I think you're too extreme. That's where I'm going to have to leave you. If you're on that far end of the spectrum, I can't deal with that.
Just to update you on the super chats, guys, I appreciate the Ask Hebrew. It seems as though there are some technical issues. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fix these during the live, but I appreciate that you were willing to go that route for us. It might not be available for this stream, but I will make sure that it's definitely back for next stream, because I want to make sure I can still focus on the show as well. So I apologize, John. You were just covering on your stance with Beatty, with Vientos, and you were erring on the side as well as I was. But you understand why people might be worried, correct?
I understand why you might be worried, but I think if you're on either extreme, I think it's too much. That's where I'm going to lose you. If you're like, I'm sure he's going to come out of it, this guy's a star in the making, I think that's too much. And if you're like, last year meant nothing, he's a flash in the pan, I think that's too much. If you have worry, I don't have worry at this point, but if you have worry, I can't argue with you because I understand where the worry comes from. And I guess it's a good segue into some of the other people on this team right now who are not producing. But God, you know what? Let's hold off on them because I think we're going to get in the weeds on Acuna and Beatty. So let's talk quickly about Brandon Nimmo, because a lot of people are also, they've got opinions on Nimmo. Ken saying drop Nimmo to 6. He's not a 4 hitter. We have
who's batting 4 then?
Carlos Ramos saying what I'd like to discuss if possible is when we're going to move Nimmo out of the 4 spot. Not hating on him, but it's difficult to not hit better than he has with runners in scoring positions. So I think, Ibby, you nailed it. Right now, who's the 4 hitter?
Who's hitting 4?
There isn't one.
I need Mark Vientos to start hitting the ball so he could be a 4 hitter potentially. You don't want to move Pete right now. And I see Explosive just put that in Pete can bat 4. I know he can, but unless you're going to sacrifice, something that is doing so well right now, like we just talked about, the numbers that are being put up between your 1, 2, and 3 of Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, unless you plan on breaking that up and dropping Soto to 3, dropping Pete to 4, and then inserting, let's say, Vientos at 2, so you can drop Nimmo to 5 or 6. Like, I don't know if this team is willing to do that right now. And I don't blame them if they don't want to. I think other players need to step up if you really want to move Nimmo off of 4. But right now, there's nobody that you can do that with. And I don't think that they are willing to sacrifice messing up what is working right now, because I think they look at the offense as something that's in a very, very tight wire act right now, where they want to make sure that they are getting production from those top 3, that they're not going to change it. The second you start to get a little bit of a downturn, you might see a change. But I think for the time being, I think you're going to see the lineup that you've been getting on a consistent basis. I think that's what you're going to see moving forward.
Well, here's the problem that I have with some of this. Like Zero Cool saying, do we need a constitutional amendment to move Vientos to second? Ken Thal saying Vientos blossomed at 2. If Vientos isn't hitting, why are you giving him more at bats than Juan Soto? Answer me that question. He'll hit better in front of Juan Soto. If that's your logic, fine. I don't even necessarily disagree. 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out from the start of the season, Ibby and I talked about potential lineups, and I talked about a lineup that I would put out there that had Vientos batting second. So I'm not coming at you, Zero. I'm not coming at you, Ken. I'm not coming at you, anybody who thinks that Vientos could hit second. I'm not disagreeing. But if Vientos is not hitting right now, and he's hitting like 125. We already went over Soto's numbers. He's got a 430 something on base, 5 something slug, 308 batting average, drawing all his walks, making the entire lineup better. Why would you put someone there who's not hitting? Can you answer that, Ibby? Because I know that you're not advocating for it. Your mic is muted, though.
Sorry. But no, I need to see a little bit more from Vientos right now. I wouldn't mind at some point if they did run him at second, and then put Soto third. I wouldn't mind that at all, but I can't, especially right now, I can't drop. I'm not even talking about Soto. I'm talking about Pete. Like, how can we drop Pete to get less at bats because we have this idea that, the 4-hitter is it's the archaic stance of, the 4-hitter is the power hitter. He's the guy who's got to be in that spot because he's going to drive in the runs and blah, 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 blah. Like, I get that to an extent, but at the same time, Pete batting third, I love some of the spots that he's been able to come up in so far. And, you're banking on, someone like Vientos just automatically turning on the switch. I can't buy that right now. I can't. And I know that some people in the comments were saying that, Soto, needs to, or he's only comfortable batting 2. Like, that's not true at all. If you look at the numbers, his numbers as a 2-hitter and a 3-hitter are pretty comparable. So I don't think it has anything to do with what makes him comfortable. I think it's more about right now, at least for this team, about what makes sense. And what makes sense at the moment is keeping those top 3 the way that they are. Can that change at some point? Yes, it could change some point because things change over a season. But right now, I don't see it changing. And I know people want to move Nimmo off of 4, but at the moment, sorry, there's no one to put in that spot. There's not.
There isn't. And just to be fair, again, I'm not bashing anybody for this because it makes sense. But I think Carlos Ramos is right here too. He was saying this right as you were. My hesitation, in all honesty, would be with moving Pete over anything else. Why are you upsetting something that is working? So now you're going to move Vientos to 2, and then where does Soto go? Soto goes to 4 in your logic?
No.
You can't do that. I'm sorry, guys. You're stuck. Again, I don't want to come off as somebody who's being an asshole with a microphone. But this concept that only Pete Alonso is a cleanup hitter is archaic. It's not accurate based on 2025 baseball. That's 1975 baseball that you're playing. It just is. This idea that Soto can't hit 2 and he needs to hit 3 because Ted Williams hit 3. That's 1940s baseball. It's not 2025 baseball. So I don't want to seem like I'm coming off yelling at folks, because I do see where the logic is, but there is cracks in the logic for right now. Because even if you're Ken and saying, because he, meaning Vientos, feels more comfortable at hitting 2. Let's say that's true. Let's say Vientos feels more comfortable hitting 2. And that's the only thing, even though whatever. What if Juan Soto wants to hit 2 and he feels most comfortable hitting 2? Are you gonna acquiesce to Mark Vientos or to Juan Soto? You can't, by your own logic. Then if you're going off of comfort, then wouldn't you want the guy who I just called the modern day Ted Williams and Zero called the best left-handed hitter since Barry Bonds, and we just gave $800 million to? Isn't it more important that he's comfortable than Mark Vientos? Like, I don't get the logic. Or Zero saying, then hit Soto first with the logic that I approach, because he's the best hitter on the team and that gets him the most at-bats. Okay, hit Soto first if you want to. But you have a person who's excelled in that spot already. So again, by that same logic, why would you upset the apple cart? You're mad because Mark Vientos isn't hitting. I'm mad because Mark Vientos isn't hitting either. You're mad because Brandon Nimmo isn't hitting. I'm mad that Brandon Nimmo isn't hitting either. But the solution is not to break up the only thing in the lineup that is working, which is Lindor, Soto, Alonso, after 12 fucking baseball games, 6 of which have been played in frigid temperatures outside. Am I being an asshole here? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think you are. I think you're defending yourself and you're stating your point fine. I don't think you're being an asshole, not at all. No.
It's just like I can't make that change now. I can't. I understand. It sucks. It sucks that these guys aren't hitting. I am a little worried about Nimmo. I've been worried a little bit about Nimmo since he signed that deal, honestly.
Yeah.
And look, Hebrew, I hear you on this. You said something similar before. I'm happy that you kind of reiterated it so I could pull it up here. Lindor was hitting worse than Vientos last year when he was moved to the leadoff spot, and look since. Again, I invite you to look at the back of Mark Vientos' baseball card and go look at the back of Francisco Lindor's baseball card. Go look at what Francisco Lindor did for all those years in Cleveland, hitting mostly leadoff. It's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same.
No track record. Or yeah, track record for Lindor versus none for Vientos. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's you can't make these kinds of changes. More importantly than anything else, you can't make these kinds of changes 12 games into a season. You just can't.
No.
It doesn't make any sense to do this now. If the Mets had anybody else that could slot into the cleanup spot right now, Ibby, let's put the conversation in this direction and then head into the break.
Yeah.
If the Mets had, because you can make minor tweaks. The Mets have already moved Mark Vientos down in the lineup because he hasn't been hitting.
Right.
So if the Mets had somebody else that they could put into the 4 spot that was hitting because Brandon Nimmo is not hitting, I would entertain that without messing the first 3 up. So if you were going Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos, and Nimmo is leaving a ton of guys on base and he's not hitting, but Vientos is tearing the cover off the ball, and you want to switch those 2, fine. But you can't change the thing that is working with the best 3 players on your team to cover for the fact that through 12 games, the rest of the lineup, except for 2 catchers who nobody even thought would be on the team, a year ago today, the rest of the team is not doing their part. It doesn't mean that you change the one part that is working. That's how you wind up fucking the whole thing up.
And I can't remember who said it in the comments, but mentioning how if we get to Memorial Day and we're still talking about these things, then obviously something has to change. And I would agree with that. But we're 12 games into the season, and one thing's working right now for this team that's playing in some cold weather. And, look, I don't like using that as the ultimate excuse, but I do think that when you come from the hot weather and you're thriving to then the cold weather, it does take some readjustment time in certain spots. Everyone goes through this in the beginning on the on the East Coast. So just give it a little bit more time. I'm not going to be overreactionary. To be honest, like this wasn't really that much on my in my brain. I wasn't really thinking about this much, even coming into this show as like the end all be all of a problem, because I just think that it's the 12 games is too small of a sample size to get freaked out over something or look for automatic change. And especially if something is working, I want to milk that for as long as I can to get as much as I can out of it until the eventual, that's baseball moment comes where everyone goes through their ups and downs. So then once it gets to that point, then yeah, you can start questioning some of the things when it comes to the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the lineup. But at the moment, I think you're just, you stick with what you have.
Also, to be fair, Explosive is right for this. Hopefully when McNeil and Alvey come back, it helps the whole offense. The Mets are missing, in their eyes. I say that because you guys know how I feel about McNeil, although the tweet that I put out yesterday got a lot of traction with regards to I'm mad at Brett Beatty for making me long for the return of Jeff McNeil, which is true. But the Mets believe there are two major contributors missing from this lineup in the form of Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil. And to this point, Ibby, guess what? They're right. Now, the catching position has been good, but save for the fact, and we'll talk about more of this in the second half, save for the fact that Acuna is your backup second baseman, shortstop, most importantly, third baseman, and maybe even center fielder in a pinch. There is a world where McNeil and Alvarez came back and you would send both Brett Beatty and Acuna to the minors, keeping 3 catchers for a little bit of time, maybe giving Alvarez a little bit of run at DH and doing some things creatively to try to extend that lineup a little bit. That's how much the Mets are missing Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil right now. Leave Beatty and Acuna till the second half of this show, but this point from Explosive is also spot on and is also why you can't make any sweeping changes. Alvarez is on a rehab assignment. McNeil is in Florida working his way back to a rehab assignment probably within the next week. These guys are going to be here maybe by the next homestand. So let's not go making sweeping changes until we get 2 contributors back here in the lineup.
Yeah, I think that I think that's the way exactly this team views them. And look, we all have our thoughts and feelings about Jeff McNeil, but the fact that we've been getting the production that we've been getting from second base, or I should say lack thereof production from second base, it's having people actually yearning for the return of Jeff McNeil. Wild times for our New York Mets, to say the least. But yeah, I think that your whole idea of this offense, at least the front office's whole idea of this offense, has not been able to be out there, front and center at any point yet for this team. The whole idea for them was to have Jeff McNeil playing at second, Alvarez behind the plate. So until they get that, I don't think there's going to be much turnover, if you will. They want to see those things happen and see how that can progress after, a 2-week span, if you will. So, reinforcements are on the way. It's good to see these guys are back out there in the box, swinging the bat. But yeah, until then, I wouldn't expect much to change. Maybe you see Nimmo move off the floor, maybe, but I have a hard time seeing them doing changing much because there's no one for that spot right now. There really isn't.
It's going to take somebody else who's not named Lindor, Alonso, or Soto to hit.
Exactly.
Santos has not done it yet.
The back of the lineup has to hit.
Yeah.
If you want change, the back end of this lineup has to do something. Otherwise, everyone just stays stagnant.
Ibby, let me just bring this up, and then we'll go into the break. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's largely irrelevant. It's not going to happen. But Carson says, folks, this is just an overreaction to 12 games of an anemic offense. Me, you, and Ibby all know the real problem, John. It will continue to be ignored, so just move on. He is alluding to the hitting coach, Eric Chavez.
No.
Eric Chavez is not going to get fired anytime soon.
No.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I don't like Eric Chavez as a hitting coach. I think his philosophy is archaic. Some people agree with me. Some people are telling me that I'm wrong, and they threw numbers in my face about the Mets, runners in scoring position last 3 years and how their numbers were, where they ranked. You watch every game. This team is very boom or bust. It's an organizational philosophy. Juan Soto does not need a hitting coach. Pete Alonso does not need a hitting coach, like in the sense of a guy in the dugout. They all go and do their work with their respective people in the off seasons and stuff like that. It's more of an organizational philosophy that is preached by the hitting coach, and it's more of an effect on the young players. And Ibby, I don't like what Eric Chavez does. What is your feelings briefly on Eric Chavez as a hitting coach?
I
do think hitting coaches are the most overrated coaches.
I do too.
In terms
I've said that.
Yeah.
I've said that before on the show. I think these guys are professionals, and it all comes down to a given player's approach. And if a given player wants to buy into the philosophy of a given hitting coach, then yes, and you see a huge downturn in said production, then yes, I have a problem with it. Because if you were someone that was, cranking out 30 home runs and now you're a 15 home run guy because you think you got to raise your average, then I have a problem with that. I do. But in general, I'm not one that likes to harp too much on this, because again, the game of baseball is, for all things that we talk about when it comes to chemistry and team and culture, baseball is a very, very, very individualized sport. You throw the ball, you catch the ball, you hit the ball. You're in a spot when you are up there to do a job. And if you're not doing it, then I have a hard time just always placing blame on a hitting coach. I get that his time here has worn thin, and it's always the easiest out to get rid of someone. Do I think that other hitting coaches within this league have a much better philosophy in terms of hitting? Yes, I do. Do I think that the likes of a Jeremy Barnes has a better philosophy and approach towards hitting as opposed to Eric Chavez? I do. Do they share the same title? They do. But I think this comes down to wanting to make sure that a team has a long enough leash on certain coaches to see if something can work through. And to John's point, you're not going to see Eric Chavez get fired. I don't think that you are. I think you're going to see him here, and however things go, you reassess at a later point. But no matter what, he's not going anywhere. So I'm not one that harps on it too much. I understand why people don't like him, but at the same time, I think a lot of this just also falls on players needing to go up there and do their job.
I agree. Chris Scopo says, hey guys, little heads up, but hitting coaches don't really do anything in the bigs, kind of alluding to what we were just saying on the beginning part of this conversation, which was it's the most overrated coach on a baseball team, like as far as people in the dugout. So I agree. Follows it up by saying the most they do is see tendencies on hitters that are bad.
Right.
But they all got to the majors without this hitting coach. They don't really do anything at any level, which again, I think is fair. But I also think when stuff is a consistent pattern, if a coach exists, they deserve some credit and they deserve some blame. And I think we could all agree with that. And I think the Mets, since Eric Chavez has been here, have been too much of a boom and bust offense for my liking. And I think for a lot of fans' liking. I know for Carson's, I know for Ibby's. I think they have better personnel in the lineup, especially right now with the likes of Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. But I just think that they have better personnel than what they've gotten out of a lot of their lineups while he has been in charge. And if they had been hitting on all cylinders while he's been in charge, he would be lauded, regardless of if, to use, Chris's words, he does anything or not. So the fact that they've been very boom or bust, and I think, quite frankly, they've underachieved as an offense under his tutelage. I think he deserves blame. So if you are a coach and you're getting paid to be a coach, even if it's an overrated concept, you get blame when they're bad, you get credit when they're good, And I don't think they've been good enough, or certainly I don't think they've been as good as they potentially could be. And that's my issue with Eric Chavez. That said, we're a little over an hour. Let's head into the break. We did a shorter show last week because of the timing of everything. We should do our full 2 hours here today. So we have plenty more to talk about, not the least of which Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna, and we should all be worried. Ibby, Mets fans, Yankee fans, baseball fans, anybody on earth, because right now, second base for the New York Mets is a black hole large enough to suck the entire earth into it. That's how bad it's been. That said, we'll be right back. Quick break, 30 seconds, some ad spots. Don't go anywhere. Till Mets do us part. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez. We'll see you in about 30 seconds. Yo, just like that, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. The best way to become a full-fledged participant in the show is to subscribe to the channel and make sure that your comments are seen here during the live stream. Questions, comments, concerns, heckles, any points you're trying to make. The only way to make that happen is to tune in live and to be a subscriber, which will allow you the ability to comment like so many great folks. We're not always going to agree like we did towards the end of the first half, and that's what makes this show what it is. Try to be as respectful, of course, as possible in the disagreements. Sometimes they're playful. Sometimes they get a little heated, like I did in the last segment. It's all good. It's all love. We appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their day, most cases 2 hours, to sit here and interact with myself and Ibby. But if you can't do any of that, you can go back and watch anything that you've missed when we're done with the live broadcast on the same YouTube channel, which is appropriately called Till Mets Do Us Part. If you subscribe, it also helps out the algorithm. Make sure that you like the video while you are here. You could also follow us at Till Mets Do Us Part on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and on Blue Sky. So check us out, all of those places. And for those of you who like the live version of the show but can't be here all the time, sometimes you want to listen to us on your way to work or whatever it might be, there's an audio version of this show available free wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and more. Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, let's hit our friends with a quick word from Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And I think that there are plenty of people that could go into this safe this week. We could put Eric Chavez in there. We could put the entire back end of this lineup in there. We can just pick up second base itself and just put it in there as just like
that base did nothing. That base,
it's supporting the ones that are playing there. I mean, I gotta blame something.
Second base has not done anything wrong. It's the people playing to the right of it, not named Pete Alonso, who are doing everything wrong. But go ahead. Sorry.
So all that being said, there's plenty of people that are worthy of the safe this week, and we might have to get the panic room to fit them all in. But either way, independent safes, tell them Till Mets sent you. They'll take care of you. $99, free shipping. You're spending $99 regardless. But tell them Till Mets sent you. They appreciate it, and they like the fact that we, run this or have this running joke, if you will, of putting someone in the safe. I'm still working on the idea of turning this into an actual segment, and I'm working on some graphics, but that will be up, in due time. I had a busy couple of days working on a graphic for today's show that was a little bit different, that I thought was proper, if you will, for this show. I had hoped that I wouldn't have to use it, but I think that it is more than proper to use this graphic during today's episode. Whenever John is ready, I will bust it out.
Okay. Couple things really quick. Kenthal saying Nice bricks behind you, Ibby.
Oh, thanks.
Carlos saying, I want Ibby to promote wherever I'm selling.
I
So
can
there you
sell
go.
ketchup to a man in white gloves, Carlos.
And here's a twist. Here's a twist from the Media Goon. He's good for these. Normally, we're talking about what we can put into an independent safe. But Keith says, can the Mets put an independent safe at second base?
Oh,
He's flipping it.
You'd probably, you know what? You would probably get much better production, and you'd get at least one fly ball out there for sure. You get at least one fly ball, that's for sure.
Ibby, this is the time in the show that I think a lot of people, based on comments, I've starred comments going back to like before we started. I think a lot of people are itching to talk about this. I know that I have. Some people are mad at me on Twitter because of a joke I made today, which I thought was strange.
Tasteless Saponaro.
Yes,
always.
I was told that my joke was tasteless because I was in
sour
poor taste.
saps over here.
It was in poor taste. All I said was, I said, if I were Juan Soto, I would take the fucking car back. I don't think that that's
How
that
dare
in poor,
you?
I don't think that's in poor taste. Also, I think it's funny. I did follow it up by saying he gave him a car, not a kidney. So I don't think it's important. Like, it's not like Beatty was on his deathbed.
Right.
And Juan Soto saved him. And I'm like, take the kidney back. Like, he gave him a car for a fucking number.
Yeah.
I
not
just
a bad trade.
I don't think that Beatty deserved any kind of like, I don't know. Jose Siri wore number 22. Also, he didn't get
this based off of the reactions of people, does this mean that the anger towards Juan Soto only giving a $90,000 Tahoe will be retracted now? Should he have given him a Pinto? Should he have given him an old Nissan? Like, should he have given him something much lesser than, based off of the production that Beatty is putting forth? Is Juan going to get those apologies? I doubt it. I don't think he's going to.
There's a person who is sometimes in our comments who is not here today, I don't think, who I think is the foremost expert to ask on this. And that is the one and only Paul Revere.
Oh, that is true. No
because
Paul
I
today.
would like to know what the going rate is in terms of horses for giving up one's number. And, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Paul Revere is here today, but that's the
nor is Midnight. Midnight's not here either.
And Midnight's not here. You know, so that's the kind of thing. I'm not asking Paul Revere to give up his horse, by the way.
No, of course not.
Insane.
Never.
It's, you know, but Armand saying Soto wasted $92,000 on bait. He did. He really did. Okay. So let's talk. Jesus. Let's talk. He's like the worst five words in the English language. Let's talk about Brett Beatty.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah, Chris, that car will be Beatty's biggest accomplishment for the Mets, unfortunately. So, Ibby, how do you want to have this conversation? You're more of a Brett Beatty supporter than I am. There's a lot of comments here that we can use as a jumping off point. I have some thoughts. I have stats pulled up. How do you want to have this conversation?
Well, for starters, I think I figured out Super Chats. So I think we are back up live on that, just so everyone is aware. If you are curious and you want to feed into the sad nature of the show that it's about to turn to when it comes to Brett Beatty talk, Super Chats, I do believe, are live now. And if anyone can let me know if they are, that'd be great and fantastic. But I'm going to open.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah. What do you got?
Ray with the comment of the day so far.
Is it the one I started off? Oh,
Brett
that's a
DF80. Ray, hold
that's
on
a good
second.
one.
I want to back up so I don't pop anybody's eardrums when I do this. That's for you, Ray. Round of applause for Ray. Brett DF80 is hilarious. Great job.
That's a good one. That's a great one.
Okay, Ibby, the floor is yours. How do we start this thing?
So we're going to start things off on a very, very somber note, because I think everyone knows that I've really tried on this show to bring forth positivity, I've tried my best to will the career of Brett Beatty into existence. But ladies and gentlemen, I have officially reached my breaking point. And a lot of times I don't allow myself to break. But I made something this week, and I think it's time. And I'm going to play this for you right now, and I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. I will remember you. Will you remember me? So
it's always fun
having
when you
said that-
sing, maybe, or if you want to call it singing.
If you want to call that singing. If I can borrow a line from one of my favorite movies in The Departed, from the scene where Billy Costigan's funeral was taking place. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon him. May he rest in peace. May his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Right now, I lay to rest you, Brett Beatty, because I am officially out. It's been real. I can't even say it's been fun, but it's been real, my friend. And I wish you all the best, but it is just not working. That's really all I got to say. That's all I got left to say, mainly because it's brutal to watch. It's impossible to support, and nothing about it brings forth any type of...
Is that
Clearly
the ghost of Brett Beatty? What the fuck
No.
was that?
That was my wife, who's clearly also upset with the play of Brett Beatty. She's dropping everything everywhere because she's so upset with having to sit there as I watch him strike out and not lift the ball off the ground. But everything that he has put out has just been clueless. It's been lost. It hasn't been worth the time, and I'm ready for change. And that's really all I got to say on it, because I don't want to waste any more breath on it. I know John's got plenty to put forth, but when I look at this, when a guy, through 12 games, 3 for 27, 11 strikeouts, 259 OPS, I mean, what are we doing here? At this point, you'd be better off playing a man down, especially in the spots that he's been in. Like, it's true though, but like all in all, that's what I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy. I'll look back in the comments. Hope you guys laughed at my ridiculous nature and my stupid singing. But that's all I got on Brett Beatty.
Some people thought it was dark. I agree. It was dark. I will say this. Two things. First, before I give my full... Carlos saying, I think YouTube wasn't allowing super chats until the Brett Beatty convo started, which is a very funny comment. It's not quite as good as DF80, but this is good. It's very topical. Chris Scopo saying, I don't think we should even have a convo. He'll be in the minors in a week and a half. It's over for the kid here. The Mets tried everything, but it's not going to work here. That's a very succinct, great point, which I largely agree with, Chris, but we're going to have the convo anyway. Ibby started off his thought process with a quote. I will start off mine with a quote from the late, great Owen Hart. Enough is enough, and it's time for a change.
That's a good one.
Brett Beatty is, by some metrics, the worst player in Major League Baseball. Shout out to Zero Cool. In only 24 at-bats, he has managed to rack up a negative 0.4 WAR. He is the worst player in the MLB right now, this minute. Stanley Babbage asked, why is Beatty getting more starts than Acuna? Acuna has not been good, but that is a great question, one that we will segue into. Ethan saying there is just no more justification from the front office to keep Beatty on the roster. He is not a major leaguer. But then you still have people like Buster, who says, give Beatty a full month before we give up on him. Now, this is not throwing shade at Buster, but it is acknowledging that Beatty has had so much time. Guys, I don't think some people realize how bad, Ibby, his numbers are for his career. Okay? Brett Beatty has had now 568 major league at-bats. Now, that is spread over parts of 4 seasons. 2 seasons in the middle where he was kind of expected to be a major contributor, the start of this season, and then his first little cup of coffee that he got now 3 full seasons ago. So I understand that a lot of people are going to argue that he has not gotten the opportunity to just go out there and produce. But he has, because he had a chance to earn a starting role 3 times. They traded Eduardo Escobar to give him third base after like 15 games. He then won the third base job a second time the following year, only to lose it to Vientos. And sure, this competition a little rigged this year because McNeil goes down. But to his credit, he produced in spring, and he deserved the right to be at least in the conversation to play second base, despite the fact that it was out of position for him. He has had more chances than most people ever get. 568 major league at-bats. Ibby. In that time, he has produced a -1 WAR in 568 at-bats. His career slash line is 211 batting average, 276 on base percentage, a 319 slugging percentage with a 594 OPS. And his OPS plus, the one that we talked a lot about positively in the first half when talking about Lindor, Alonso, and Soto. Again, OPS plus, league average is 100. So if you're at 110, you're 10% better than league average. Brett Beatty's career OPS plus is 67. That is 33% worse than league average. If this guy put up those numbers across just one season, you take all of that in his career and you say he did that in 2024. Could you justify him being a starter on your baseball team in 2025?
No.
You absolutely can't.
No.
And somehow, despite the fact that those career numbers are bad, his numbers this year right now are worse. And I know it's a very short sample size. Zero Cool already alluded to the fact that he has a -0.4 WAR, which is almost impossible to do in only 24 at-bats. He has a slash line of 125 batting average, 125 on base percentage because he hasn't drawn any walks. That leads to a 167 slug with a 292 OPS. And his OPS plus, again, league average 100. I didn't even know this was possible. It's -17. He is 117% worse than league average. Brett Beatty should be put in an independent safe, strapped in a rocket, and shot into space. Everything that you want to do to people that you don't like on the team, he should be victim of. That's just what, and I'm sorry to monologue here, and I apologize for throwing numbers out, but the numbers are so bad. And sometimes, I always say this on the show, if you're a fan of traditional stats, I don't hate on you. If you're a fan of advanced stats, I don't hate on you, because stats, all of them, they tell stories. These stats are telling a story that I would I don't want to read that fucking book. Okay. I can't do it. And I know that I've been playfully hard on him because I don't think that he's good. And I have not thought that he is good for a very long time. But I don't relish in this. I'd rather him be good and be contributing so that we could have a different conversation. Go back to the last segment. Who's hitting cleanup? I wish Brett Beatty was hitting 340. So we take Nimmo out of the cleanup spot, put Brett Beatty there. And I come on this show and I could eat crow and be like, man, God, I was fucking wrong about Brett Beatty. He really turned a corner. All those Grapefruit League numbers, they really transitioned this year. I wish that I could be doing that. But I'm not. Because he's not good. He has not been good. And I just don't know. I think I said it to you last week. The Mets didn't do it this way. I know Acuna has been almost as bad. But especially after the error today that really opened up the floodgates. I think you have to just play Acuna at second base until McNeil comes back. You at least need to give Beatty a break.
Yeah, there's no I've said before about how profiles and what they think a hitter might be able to do, and they probably think that Beatty profiles better, but you're not getting that. So again, I'll take the defense. And I know that we're having a lot of questions when it comes to the back end of this lineup and talking about, defensive first players getting more time, and they're not providing anything for the back end for the offense. But at this point, shit, man. I mean, I'll take the strong defense up the middle, and I'll sacrifice the offense because I'm not. I actually, you know what? I shouldn't even say sacrifice because I'm not sacrificing offense because I'm not getting any offense. So I will take the better defense. So at least I'm stronger on one side of the ball as opposed to being deficient on both sides of the ball. So all in all, I'm more than willing to give more run to Acuna on this run up until McNeil gets back. And I think McNeil at this point is just going to insert himself right back into the lineup. We all had hoped that one of these players would take the ball and run with it, but it seems as though everybody is petrified of the ball and they're just running away from potentially taking it. So, it's ugly all around. It sucks all around. It's painful to watch. But Jeff McNeil's going to waltz right back in, take second base back. But until that happens, I'm at the point where I just say, play the better defender, let Acuna play, and let's go from there.
Yeah, look, a lot of comments here. So try to address them. First of all, shout out to Keith Blacknick, the media goon. I guess this came in during my tirade, so I missed it. Thank you for the super chat, Ibby. I guess you did get super chats fixed. Thank you for fixing them. Thanks, Keith, for the $5. He says, Ibby, check your messages. Have some Beatty images for you.
As dark as
improper
as improper as that sounds, it's just some generated AI photos of a guy tied up, what looks to be out on an island or on an iceberg, just tied up and look to be left out in the cold, if you will. Just some funny AI photos because everyone knows I love messing around with AI. But yeah, it's just it's over, man. I tried. I can't do it anymore. I can't. It's like I'm a battered man, beaten down man. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I'm sorry. Brett.
A couple good ones here. Clink saying, just got here for today's episode, and naturally, first thing I hear is John saying Beatty needs to be shot into the sun. That's why this is my favorite Mets podcast.
Love you, Clink.
Thank you, Clink. Appreciate that. Zero Cool saying, watching Beatty is like watching Godfather 3. Ray again.
Ray had
Another
a good
good one.
I saw it.
Beatty dick pics are just pics of Beatty. Also,
Ray, you're on fire today, man. You are on fire.
Ray is on fire, and much. I got to applaud. Not only has Ray been funny, but the same way I applauded Keith's outside the box thinking for the independent safe, I have to applaud Ray's outside the box thinking here for a solution. Do we have an Airbud we can put at second base? Is there an Airbud in the Mets minor leagues? Is there perhaps a golden retriever who is good enough to play second and turn the double play. Based on what I've seen today only,
Oh my God.
I would rather have an Airbud.
I would rather have
second
Airbud.
base.
I would. Got a much better shot at succeeding. Oh my God.
Ken saying, where is Jet Williams?
Not
Double
ready.
A. So
Double A, not ready.
you're gonna. I will. Maybe I can almost guarantee you this. Almost because of the nature of the injury he's recovering from. I would say there's a 75% chance or greater that you will see Ronnie Mauricio before you see Jet Williams.
I would agree with that. I would. I just think they're going to take their time with Jet, and until he starts like really like blowing the doors off of Double A, I don't see him. Until that happens, I don't see him even as a thought in the entire process. So yeah, I think you got a better shot seeing Ronnie first. Yeah, for sure.
Explosive saying, watch Beatty hit a home run on Friday. Now
I hope he does.
I'm gonna quote. I don't know if you
Lift
watch
the
Rick
ball.
and Morty, but I'm gonna quote Rick and Morty, or paraphrase it at least, when he has his standoff with Mr. Nimbus, his one-time arch rival, and he's like, "I wish you would do something, do anything." Like, I hope he hits a home run on Friday. For the love of Christ.
Christine coming in though and saying, "Explosive, he'll be gone by Friday." One can hope. I don't think that's going to happen though, but one can hope, Christine, for sure.
Ibby, this has been brought up by a few different people. Armand brought it up first, so I'll pull up his question. With the Mets playing the A's in a minor league stadium, does Brett Beatty hit? I doubt it. He sucks. But
So
Brett Beatty hits. Listen, couple things of note in all seriousness.
It's a small park.
It's a small park, and it plays small.
But that would also require you to lift the ball.
Correct.
And that's not happening. Oh my God.
Protect
the worms out in Sacramento. Protect the worms. Save the worms.
It's supposed to be about 70, 75 degrees all weekend in Sacramento. So the weather will be good. It is a small ballpark that plays smaller because it doesn't have the extra, like those minor league parks don't have extra tiers. They don't have that third level of seats. And so the wind is more of a factor. If the wind's blowing out, it's blowing out.
Yeah.
And so the Mets are going to hit home runs in Oakland or in Sacramento. Excuse me. See, I already fucked it up. The Mets are going to hit home runs in Sacramento. I think Soto will hit. I think Lindor will hit. I think Alonso's going to hit. I even think, maybe you'll see this opportunity for Vientos to get hot, Nimmo and whatever. Like you said, Beatty's got to lift the ball, and he's not lifting the ball. Now, here's the other side of this equation. D-Mac says, problem is Acuna is not hitting either. Makes sense to keep playing both of them and see if one breaks out. But the counterpoint, Ethan says, while Acuna hasn't really been impressive with the bat, he's shown more productive at bats and isn't going to make egregious errors like what we saw from Beatty. So I know I said last week I would have given Acuna the start in 5 of 6 of these games on the homestand. The Mets did not do that. I say again, going into this off day and the road trip, I would give Acuna, maybe not 5 of 6 or whatever, but I would give Acuna more starts than Beatty. Would you give Acuna more starts than Beatty? Or, because there is validity to this comment from D-Mac of if neither one is hitting, there is no harm in kind of running them both out there still.
I think, but also I think because we've seen more of Beatty to this point and he's done absolutely nothing with it, and it just seems like it's getting worse. I don't see the point in keeping on running him out there, especially when this is supposed to be a play the hot hand situation. If one guy's gotten more run than the other guy, well, now let's give the other guy some run then, because they're both not performing. I agree with that. But if one has gotten more run than the other, well, then try the other guy at this point. Let's see if we give him some more at bats. If we give him more consistent playing time, can he show something of worth? It's been ugly in the spurts that it's been, but what if we gave him a week straight? Are we going to see a little bit more improvement? Are we going to see better at bats? Okay. I think that there's much more to gain from doing something like that as opposed to continue the split right now, because you're getting absolutely nothing from Beatty and he's been getting more looks as it is.
Yeah, that's why I would That's why I would give more run to Acuna. I think, Carlos Ramos says Acuna has not even gotten close to the at-bats that Beatty's got. It's not a fair comparison yet. Also says Acuna has hit at the major league level, small sample size, more than Beatty has hit in 3 years. I do look at it this way, just in fairness, Carlos. Your point is largely correct. Acuna has 19 at-bats. Beatty has 24. It's not a massive disparity. But Ibby, I will say this. While Acuna has been bad, and he has been offensively, Beatty has been so bad that it makes Acuna look good by comparison. Batting average, 158, 2 stolen bases, 4 runs scored, a 238 on base, a 211 slug, a 449 OPS, and a 31 OPS plus. That's bad, but let me remind you, Beatty, 125, no runs scored, no RBI, no stolen bases, a 125 on base percentage, 167 slug, a 292 OPS, and a negative 17 OPS plus. That's so bad. That's impossibly bad. Like, no exaggeration. I think that you or I could do that.
I don't know. These guys are going pretty hard, man. I don't know if I can hit him now. I don't know if I can hit him.
Ibby. He has a negative 17 OPS plus. You don't think that you could be 117% worse than league average? How much worse could you be? How much worse?
I mean, I watch a lot of pitching, Ninja Man. I don't know. The stuff they're throwing is pretty filthy. I don't think I'll be able to sniff it. But I think you're right when you say that a lot of what we've seen to this point in the spots it's been into, it's just been so bad for Beatty. And I know that the discrepancy isn't that large when it comes to the at-bats, but the consistency I still think I think it needs to be there. And I think when you instill something in a player, and to this point, I feel like Beatty has been given more of a consistent look as opposed to Acuna to this point, because a lot of times you check the lineup, and when you check it, Beatty's in there. Beatty's in there. Beatty's in there. And then you got Acuna filling in late, gets in at bat late. I think it's more so I want to see something. I would love to see something for like 5 days straight, 6 days straight, where Acuna's run out there every day, playing second base and batting, 8th or 9th, wherever they want to put him, and just see what happens. Because at this point, why not? Why not? Just give it a try.
I think that's part of it. I think while the at-bat comparison is close, I do acknowledge the starting run that Beatty has gotten has greatly outweighed the run of, get in there, get 4 at-bats. Beatty has had more of those opportunities than Acuna has.
Yes.
And Carson says Acuna isn't getting playing time to do anything with because the Mets can't help themselves with playing this disgrace to the number 7. That's true. And he follows it up by saying, this is why I never liked the concept of platooning Beatty and Acuna, because they were just going to favor Beatty and rot the kid on the bench. And I think that that's true too. I think there is some fairness to both of those comments. Obviously Carson, much like me, speaks a lot hyperbolically and, needles people at times with how he says stuff. But I think he's right with regard to just put Acuna out there for 5 games in a row and just see what happens. Because like Ibby's saying, like I'm saying, like Carlos is saying, give the kid some run, because at least small sample size, we saw it. Beatty has, is it fair to say this, Ibby? Beatty has never had a 10-game streak, the likes of which Acuna had when he filled in for Lindor at the major league level.
He did have the one hot streak. The one hot streak last year that was short-lived. It was, I want to say it was like a 2-week run, but it wasn't like beat the brakes off of you 2 weeks type of performance. But for what he had been up to that point, I want to say it was like a 2-week span where he was like, oh my God, is Brett Beatty finally figured it out? And he didn't. But I want to say it was that long. I might be wrong on that. Maybe those 2 weeks ended up being like 10, 11 games, whatever it was. But that was it. Outside of that, he's never provided a spark to the team to what Acuna provided for us when Lindor went down last year. So no, I would agree with you on that.
Chris Scopo saying, John, you would have a negative 75 OPS plus. That's probably true. That's probably true. I think Chris is right. But what I will counter with is a negative 75 OPS plus that much worse than a negative 17 OPS plus? In other words, once you get into the negative, does it really matter?
Does it really matter because you stink so bad? Yeah.
Like you stink so bad. It's like, that's earth shattering. That's earth shatteringly bad. So I just don't know that it matters at that part. Charlie saying it is 330 feet to left, 403 to center field, and 325 to right field in the ballpark in Sacramento.
I get one out of there. I definitely could.
I think you could. Maybe not against major league pitching, but
No, I couldn't. Yeah, but I could hit one out. Yeah.
You think you could do it with a wooden bat?
I do.
Okay.
I can pull one. I could pull one.
So Rosie bring up a good point, and this is more for you than it is for me.
Yeah.
Because I am going to argue against this entirely, but a lot of people feel this way, saying it's mental with Beatty. He's not going to get better with more at bats. I agree with the second part. I think it's there's a mental component of it now, because I know we joke about the negative 17 OPS plus and stuff. I don't think he's this bad. I don't think anybody in the major leagues is this bad. So now it's clearly gotten into his head where he knows this is basically his last shot, barring something crazy. So I do think in this particular instance, there is a mental side of it to be this bad. But Ibby, you've even said to me in the past that you think he has the makings of somebody who would figure it out somewhere else. Mm-hmm. My question is, has that changed for you? Because I argue that he is just the definition of a quad A player.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he would figure it out if he played in, the White Sox with no pressure because that team's not good, or Milwaukee with less pressure because they don't have the media scrutiny. I think he's a 4A player. Do you still think that do you still think if the Mets traded Brett Beatty tomorrow, do you think he would be a successful major leaguer somewhere else?
I think it depends on what you mean by successful.
Do you think he's a major league player? Or do you think he's doomed to just, kind of, if he bounces around for, 3 more years and then is out of baseball, I don't consider that to be a success. Getting some starts here, some, a cup of coffee with this team, a little bit of run with this team. Like, I don't think that that's a successful major league player based on where he was drafted and his prospect stock and what Mets fans and what the Mets organization at one point had for him as expectations. So it is a bit of grading with a curve. Obviously, it's better than I would do. So just making it to the major leagues is an accomplishment. I'm not trying to diminish that. I'm not trying to be a total prick, but I don't think he's a major league player. I have not thought that he's a major league player. You have been of the school of thought that he could do it somewhere else. Do you think he still can?
To bring it back to what Rosie was saying about the mental side, and I mentioned this prior when we talked about this probably almost a month ago now, where I said this, Brett, this was your last chance. It's up on our short. It's up on our TikTok. I had said that this is your last chance, but you're going to have to start hot, because the second you don't start hot, the lights are going to get that much brighter, and you're not going to be able to pick yourself up off the mat because you've struggled to this point. If you don't shake these demons from the jump, you have no shot of getting up. You're never going to get up. And we've seen to this point, and we're watching. I know people are saying how they feel bad for the guy and stuff like that, and others are being a lot more ruthless in that sense. But to this point, like, it seems as though he cannot, and he's not going to get himself up off the ground. I still think the guy can play baseball. I do. I just think that a place like this swallows people up, spits them out, doesn't care for them, kicks them while they're down. And I think that, to what you were saying before, that if you were a player that could just go somewhere where no one's watching and you just go out there and you play, can you eventually figure something out and become more confident within a job? I do think that can happen. Now, is he going to ever become my, what I do as my bit for the bold predictions? Probably not. I don't think he's going to become that. Can he be successful and bounce around and help some teams? I think it's possible, but I think it's clear that this guy is always going to struggle. And this is why it's going to limit his ceiling, obviously. He's always going to struggle when it comes to the brightest of lights, because even if you are on a smaller team that is not expecting much of anything, and that team starts to do well, and that starts to, God forbid you get to October, then what, you're just going to turn to a pumpkin again? Like, you're once the lights get brighter, are you just going to forget how to play baseball again? It seems as though that's what this type of player would be. So is he ever going to hit that 90th percentile of a prediction that I gave people? Probably not. Do I think he can still succeed elsewhere? Probably. But I do think that there is an absolute limit to that potential ceiling. But I'm not going to sit here and say that if the Mets, got rid of him, that he's just going to drop out of baseball tomorrow. I don't think that's the case, because we live in a time, and this is a sport where everybody has egos. Everybody believes in what they preach, and everybody, just like we do on this show, everybody who hates Eric Chavez and says things about the approach and what's going on, there's somebody else out there that's saying, I can fix this. I can be that guy. So no matter what, I think because of the talent that some believe he still has, someone's going to be willing to try it out. But I don't think it's going to happen here. And I was honest about that earlier in the offseason too. I don't think it's ever going to happen here.
According to the chat, Francisco Alvarez got a hit in his first at bat.
Hey,
in
now
his rehab game.
My man.
I think that was from Ethan, but also somebody else. Yes, Armand. Of course, Armand always has this stuff too. It was a line drive hit in his first at bat. So nice to see him hit the ball on the screws, playing in low A and all that stuff, but whatever, it's still important.
Until Chavez gets a hold of him
and ruins them. Ibby, let me ask you a question. Just play this what if game. Again, not going to spend a lot of time on it, just really, really quickly. With the struggles offensively from everybody not named Lindor, Soto, or Alonso to this point, and the massive gaping hole that exists at second base currently until Jeff McNeil gets back here, and adding this to it from DMAC, Acuna's numbers through spring and his track record in AAA in total shows that he needs further development in AAA. He could benefit from that development. I don't disagree. Do you think the Mets, David Stearns, and even you and I were wrong, and the Mets should have brought back Jose Iglesias? I know it's early, but with Beatty not panning out, McNeil going down, both of these guys being here, when McNeil comes back, Acuna has to stay on the roster. They need a backup second baseman. They need a right-handed hitter on the bench. They need a guy with some speed on the bench. They need a guy who can back up shortstop because they don't have anybody else. Do you think they made the wrong choice? Or is it just too soon to tell still?
I think it's wrong. I don't think it's fair to Monday morning quarterback it now, mainly because we both agreed at that time, and I think a majority of people agreed at that time, that you have to figure out what you have. And even if it ends up being wrong, you can't go back and say, we should have just brought this guy back and it would have helped us now. But no, it's about sustainability. It's about doing well moving forward. Does this guy work? If he doesn't work, does this guy work? If he doesn't work, okay, now I know I truly need an answer, because we can love Jose Iglesias all we want and for what he provided for this team, and I will forever be thankful for what he provided for this team. But he's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term plug. So I don't regret, and I don't look back on it and say, we made the wrong call. I think that's way too short-sighted. I think that you made the right call to see if what you have can work, and you find out, was I right or was I wrong? And if I was wrong, fine. At least I now know that that's two options that I had at a position that is a full of in terms of talent around it, like a glut position in terms of the minors and in the lower majors at this point. I know that 2 of those names now are out and I can move on to what's next. So I don't blame them for trying and seeing if something works. It's early, 12 games, to say that it's an absolute failure, but I don't regret, and I don't put regret towards them for making that call, because I thought it was the right call then. I think it's the right call now.
Carlos Ramos and Cindy both disagree with you, sending out identical yeses.
I like how it's yes, but you say that these disagree, but like you think it's a good thing for me. It's like, nope, they were just against you.
That was the Mets made the wrong call.
Right.
That's when this came in. But fine. It's just funny that they both typed the exact same thing at the exact same time. Carson saying, considering the fact that Iglesias is now playing left field for the Padres, LOL, I think Iglesias thinks he could help us more, and that's why he held out for so long. I think that's fair, but I also think it's fair to say it's revisionist history at this point. I agree. I think that you have to look at this situation in totality. At the time, I didn't think it made sense to bring back Iglesias, not as long as Jeff McNeil was on the roster. Mets didn't move Jeff McNeil. Mets couldn't move Jeff McNeil. That's what changed some of the math. That, and of course, Pete Alonso coming back and them not having the ability to slide Vientos to first and all this other stuff. Those 2 guys being here changed the math. You do need to know what you have in these folks, like Ibby had just alluded to, with Beatty, with Acuna. But you also have to recognize that you do have Ronnie Mauricio. I don't know when, but you will. You do have Jet Williams. I don't know when, but you will. And there are people like Zero Cool who are a big fan of Jeff McNeil. There are people like Carlos Ramos who are not a fan of Jeff McNeil. But he is still on this team, and he is making money, and he is going to play. And right now, I'm not a fan of Jeff McNeil either. But right now, I am going to be happy when he comes back, because he's going to provide something better than what Beatty and Acuna are providing, at least right now in the short term. So I think you have to look at it in totality and still understand that the Mets needed to do it this way. Also, I know no one's going to want to hear this, but it's true. Ibby, the Mets did sign Nick Madrigal to be the insurance policy.
Yep.
And he got hurt, and he's out for the year. And that sucks. Now, was he going to be a serious insurance policy? I don't know. I don't know. I know that he wouldn't put up a negative 17 OPS plus. And I think if Nick Madrigal is healthy, Ibby, one of Beatty and Acuna is not on the team right now. He would have been called up either when...
And it would have been Acuna. He would have been down.
Sure. Yeah. But then maybe at this point, maybe Beatty goes down and maybe Madrigal comes up or Acuna comes up, because I think both of these guys have been so bad. He was the insurance policy. So, I don't know what else you could have expected the Mets to do. I know the story with Iglesias was so fun, and I wouldn't have been mad if they brought him back. But I think when you look at the baseball future of this team, they couldn't bring him back. And I still stand by that. I didn't think so then, and I have to stand by it now. I do.
Yeah. And again, it echoes the same thing I was on, and I agree with that. So,
Chris nailing it. Shout out to Chris Scopo, who's been in the chat all day, and it's always great when a former guest on the show is hanging out with us in the chat. We'll have Chris on again. We'll talk.
Thank you so much, Chris.
And stuff like that. But saying middle infield was the greatest asset in the minors, so Iglesias just played the wrong position for us to sign. Yeah, pretty much. It's a shorter version of what you and I just spent 5 minutes talking about. Ibby, we got to get out of here. Anything we missed before we do?
Just remember that super chats are available. They are to afford the Uber rides from Brett Beatty, in case you were curious on that one, because that Tahoe ain't cheap. But other than that, I did want to put out one thing. Obviously, shout out to the bullpen. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning. They've been fantastic. I love everything that I've been seeing from them, from Kranick to Stanek. You're worried a little bit about Diaz's velocity, but I think he'll get right as the weather turns. I'm not too worried about it just yet, but love everything that I've been seeing from the guys out in the pen. I wanted to put out there, I was at Citi Field on Sunday. Shout out to the Citi Field faithful for this last homestand. They came out in droves. The opening day weekend had, what was it, 120 plus thousand people across the 3 days. The place was lively, even when it was frigid and freezing. And everyone came out and made that place feel special. I often said that Citi Field never felt like home for this team for the longest of times. Never felt like a true home. 2015, that changed. Go through a little bit more of a dark time. It felt like an actual home in 2024. Even in 22, that playoff game didn't feel like it. Dead. Didn't out of steam, didn't have anything. 24 got back. Felt like 15 again. So far, early returns, at least when I was in the building, what I've seen on television, the energy is back. Steve Cohen challenged all of you to show up for this team. You all did, and I expect that all of you will continue to do so, even though we all know it's expensive to get out there, okay? Everyone showed up. Everyone was loud. Everyone made that place feel special, and I expect that to continue because when you have expectations put on you, you as fans want things, so that pushes you even more to be louder, to support, and show up. You all did that this past week. I expect it to continue, and I expect Citi Field to continue to feel like an absolute home. I was pumped up to be there for it, pumped up to watch it on television. That's all I got. Next week, let's go Mets. Hopefully we have some more offensive positivities to speak on.
Very well said. I wish I could go to Citi Field, trying to get back to New York sometime this summer, trying to make sure that, I can get out there a little bit. Last year, I did not get to Citi Field at all. My work schedule was a lot more hectic, a lot busier. I did go to Mets games, obviously, here in Southern California and some other places. I was thinking, Ibby, I thought about going up to Sacramento, West Sacramento, to watch the Mets play the A's in that minor league ballpark. It's the closest they're going to be for a little while. I think they come out and play the Dodgers in May or June. I don't remember off the top of my head. So I was like, maybe I'll go out, but it's a 5.5 hour drive one way.
Gross.
So then you're really talking about staying overnight. Then if you stay overnight, you're like, okay, do I stay overnight and go to 2 games? Then you get a hotel. The expense goes up that way. I don't even know how good the game is going to be watching
Also,
it in a minor league.
Beatty. Ugh.
Yeah. I thought about flying up there and flying home.
The
ticket prices for round trip same day are like, not crazy, but like 200 and something bucks round trip, which is a lot. When you factor in getting the game too. And then also timing of flights, trying to get up to Sacramento, it's you land an hour before the game starts. If there's a delay, next thing you know, you missed the first 3 innings of the game. That's the whole reason why you were going. And that sucks. So anyway, I went to games when the Mets were in Oakland. I have driven up to, Northern California before to watch them. I drove up to San Francisco to watch them at a great ballpark, and maybe I'll do that. That's a little easier when they come out to San Fran. But I thought about going because I thought it would be novel to see them play in the minor league ballpark, but I decided ultimately it is not worth it. So I think I'm going to just watch it at home, watch it on TV, and enjoy the game that way from that tiny ass ballpark. And then I'll see the Mets when they get out to Southern California, San Diego, LA, maybe San Francisco as well when they get back out that way. But yeah, man, I got a little FOMO, but that's what it is. That's what you trade in, because it was 83 degrees today. So, I'll trade that. I'll trade that. I'll take that trade. All right. Shout out to everybody who was here in the comments all day.
Appreciate all you guys.
Yeah, especially folks, it's always great to see, like I said, former guests on the show like Chris Scopo and Keith Blacknick, the media goon, and have them be here for the 2 hours. And, Carson, who's, content creator, and he's got to get out there and do his own show, and have him be here for the 2 hours. But
always love the support.
Not just them. It's everybody. It's across the board. There's a lot of really great conversations. Shout out to Ray. Still really funny stuff today. Shout out to Carlos Ramos, who let us know that, no, that was, I want to make sure I attribute credit properly. Carlos did have a lot of good comments. It was Hebrew Hammer who let us know that the super chats weren't working.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Fix the super chats, which allowed us to get a super chat from Keith Blacknick, the media goon. I was doing that all from memory. fucked it up a little bit, but not too bad.
It's all good. It's all good.
This has been a great show. It's always an awesome time. And we will drop a new Til Mets Morning Minute tomorrow, as well as dropping this as an audio podcast. So make sure you're subscribed on Spotify too, because Spotify is doing some cool stuff. The YouTube channel and Spotify, between those two entities, it's a lot of really interesting ways to absorb this show, because obviously you get the live stream here on YouTube. You could also watch anything that you missed, but also you can get the Til Mets Morning Minutes in their true form as YouTube shorts. And then on the Spotify side, you can listen to this show, but they also allow you to put out video content. So all the Til Mets Morning Minutes are the short form, vertical videos that you can get right on Spotify too. So if you haven't subscribed on Spotify, I would suggest you do. Even if you mostly watch us here, we appreciate however you digest this show, but
all support matters.
Yeah, the support matters. So even honestly, if you just want to subscribe on Spotify just for the hell of it, and you just want to watch us here, that's fine, but it will help us out. So we appreciate it. That said, let's go Mets. Embark on a road trip in a day from now, coming out to the West Coast, going to Minnesota. Still plenty of work to do. They've gotten off to a good start, but got to keep on keeping on. I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you next week. Peace.